Hi, everyone. I will be going over my culture presentation right now. So my presentation is on the Chinese culture. My name is Esmeralda Aceves-Jimenez. This is for the HG CAPS 3200 class for summer session 2026. So a little bit of what I'll be going over. The presentation content for this presentation is the introduction to the culture, the history, flag, language, religion, holiday celebrations, traditional clothing for both men and women, traditional foods, sports, and then my list of references. To begin the introduction of the culture, my culture location is China with an overview of the Chinese culture. And I will be going into the beginning history of China. So, to begin, in the 16th century, China and Western communities began their engagement. This pretty much means that during this time, China and Western communities began communicating with each other on trade and business opportunities. During the 1700s, the Qing government limited this trade and only allowed China to trade through what is called the Canton system. From 1792 to 1793, Britain demanded trading and lower taxes, which unfortunately was denied, and this embarkment was known as the Macartney Embassy. Again, in 1816, there was another embarkment, which is known as the Amherst Embassy, with Britain demanding the same lower trade, lower taxes and trading, but unfortunately, this one was denied as well. In the 1800s, China and British trade grew, what is known as the Napier Affair, after William Napier, a British official who came to China. This was primarily when tensions with Britain and China grew. Unfortunately, in 1839 through 1842, Britain defeated China in what we know as the Opium War. From 1834 and beyond, there's a lot of Chinese history. So from 1834 to 1836, Westerners created books about China. Although these books primarily focus on the conflicts and the fighting of China, in 1840s, the China had to open more trading to Western countries, which is known as the treaty system. In 1848, Samuel Wells Williams created a book to share influential Chinese history, which is known as the Middle Kingdom. The difference between the book that Samuel Wells Williams created and the Westerners created is that the Williams books were primarily all the general population, all the general knowledge of Chinese history, whereas the Western books that they created were normally focused primarily on the negative aspects, such as the fighting and the conflicts. Here is the flag of China. As you can see, the flag is bright red. This was also known as the red being Chinese red. The red symbolizes pretty much power because of its bright color. The large star we can see there, bigger than the rest of the stars, is known for the Communist Party. And the four smaller stars are known for the working class, which are the peasantry, workers, petit bourgeois, and the national bourgeois, which are known as the capitalists. The language in China is primarily Chinese characters, namely Li Shu. This is pictograms, indirect symbols, associative complexes, determinative phonetics, mutually interpretive symbols, and borrowed phonetic characters. Another form of language in the Chinese culture is known as Chinglish or Chinese English, which is a substandard English usage. This can also be, I guess you can kind of get the idea of this when somebody says Spanglish, Spanish and English. Chinglish is Chinese and English. This language was created as a result of what is known as learners' ignorance of the fundamental grammatical structures of standard English. So it's basically to as a way of when people didn't know all the words of Chinese and English, and then they formed them together. Religion in the Chinese culture is known as Buddhism. The Buddhism is known as non-Buddhist, atheist, or followers of other religions. You can still fall into any of these categories while still practicing Buddhism. In the 17th century history, this involves the synthesis of the Taoist and Confucian ideologies with traditional Chinese beliefs. By the 19th century, the arrival of Dutch Theosophists sparked a revival of Buddhism, and primarily Buddhist activities are celebrating Buddha Purnima, copying sacred texts, and daily incense offerings. Buddhist ceremonies also include Chinese New Year's, the Zongyan Festival, and the winter solstice. More of Buddhism ceremonies primarily consist of ancestral worship and offering prayers and incense to the Buddha. Buddhism was primarily their religion because it was known to alleviate social anxiety. And now I will go into the holiday celebrations. So in the Chinese culture, there are different types of holiday celebrations. We have what is known as traditional holidays and what is known as non-traditional holidays. So for the traditional holidays, we have the Spring Festival, which is the worshiping of the gods and praying for good fortune in the agrarian society. We also have what is known as the Tomb Sweeping Day, which is April 5th, and this consists of worshiping ancestors and rites of spring and becomes a time to sweep graves, honor the deceased relatives, and satisfy the ancestors. Another form of traditional holidays is known as the Dragon Boat Festival, which is May 5th. This is a sacrifice of the dragons and the commemoration of the patriotic poet Hu Yan in the Warring States period, which evolves into diverse customs, normally eating traditional Chinese rice pudding, racing dragon boats, hanging calamus and moxa, and taking medicinal baths. Another traditional holiday is the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is August 15th. This consists of sacrificing the moon in autumn and developing into various customs. This is primarily when you would have what is called a family reunion, and you would admire the full moon and then as well as eat mooncakes. The Spring and Mid-Autumn Festival are both known as family reunions because these are the big major holidays to where your family comes back into town and you see the majority of your family. The non-traditional holidays in the Chinese culture consist of New Year's Day, which is staying up late or all night, giving children money as a Lunar New gift, or going to the temple fair. May Day is International Workers' Day, which honors the working class. And then we have National Day, which is October 1st, which is called another name for it is called Unity Day. The majority of these holiday celebrations are known for their parties and their parades. Now, traditional clothing, I'll go into both men and women. Women's traditional clothing consists of dressing in gender neutral or even using men's clothing to show gender equality. Women usually show their class position and their abstention from manual labor by their ankle-length gowns and long fingernails. And as well, the Chinese culture for women has a lot of what is known as flowery clothes. Men's traditional clothing from 1966 to 1976, we have what is called the military uniform or the Zongshan suits, work uniforms, linen coats, and red guard suits. We also have yellow, gray, and blue, which were very popular colors. The Chinese culture also called this, instead of blue pants, they would call it blue ants, yellow ants, and gray ants. And they would pretty much just drop the P and say ants instead. For both men and women traditional clothing, the upper class pretty much created the fashion style and the lower class imitated this fashion style. So it was up to the upper class to come up with pretty much the new trend. Now I will go into the traditional foods. So in the Chinese culture, we have the primary traditional food, which is Su cuisine, or the Jiangsu cuisine, which is known as the eight great cuisines in Chinese cuisine. The cuisine includes animals, plants, which are mainly rice, wheat, and foods based on the seasons. This type of cuisine had a lot of fish and crustaceans, which are served as a main course of soup cuisine. They primarily used fish and crustaceans because they were of very high protein. Now, cold dishes are also known as appetizers. These type of foods in the Chinese culture consisted of braised dried tofu or marinated crabs. We also have warm dishes, which are the Nanjing salted duck, squirrel fish, fish hiding in mutton, or the lion's head. And pretty much each dish is exactly what you would think it is. Like for the lion's head, we can pretty much come to the conclusion that it was not an actual lion's head. It was pork meatballs shaped into the head of a lion. The squirrel fish was fish shaped as a squirrel. And then the marinated crabs are, we can see how we have them pictured here. Still crabs, just marinated. Now we have staple foods in the Chinese culture, which include grains, particularly rice or fried rice. We also have a variety of different noodles, such as belly, plain, meaty, vegan, fish soup, fried noodles, or silver sink noodles. Some of the soups include duck blood, vermicelli soup, or umami fried pork skin soup. Now onto the sports. There are a variety of different sports in the Chinese culture. We have here martial arts, the lion dance, archery, chuan, polo, kuju, diabolo, or the dragon boat. Now for the art and artifacts, here we have revolutionary historical paintings dated back to the 20th century. Chinese artists work in this genre of revolutionary historical painting to create works aimed at fostering the patriotic spirit and glorifying the greatness of China. These works include not only heroic episodes of the revolutionary past, but also important events of our time. This trend began to support uh, pretty much all the history of China, which is why the majority of Chinese art is a lot with the history. Here we can see um, from the left to right, this is a great proletarian culture revolution and a mass revolutionary celebration. And then we can here see on the right, oh, I'm sorry, this was the left. On the right, this is the March of the Long March. So the majority of Chinese art is pretty much a symbol of their history. Here is slide one. And here you can see the references that I have included. So I have 3 different pages of references. And that is all my presentation on the Chinese culture. Thank you guys.